The 3:30 p.m. meeting of the Bakersfield City Council is now in session.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to call to order the 3:30 regular City Council meeting of February 14th, 2024. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Go,
Here.
Vice Mayor Gonzalez.
Here.
Councilmember Arias.
Here.
Councilmember Weir.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
I am here.
Councilmember Freeman. Councilmember Gray.
Here.
And Councilmember Core.
Here.
Thank you. In keeping with the Council's resolution, the public statements portion is now divided into two periods. There's a period for items listed on the meeting agenda and items not on the meeting agenda. Statements for items listed on this afternoon's agenda are given a 2-minute time limit, 20 minutes total per agenda item. Statements regarding items not listed on the agenda are also given a 2-minute time limit, 20 minutes total. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, give them to the clerk, who will give copies to the Council. If you're here to make a public statement, please fill out a public speaker card and give your completed card to the city clerk. We ask that you mark whether you're here to speak on an item listed on this afternoon's agenda or in a matter not on the agenda. Speakers who do not identify a specific agenda item will be presumed speakers for the non-agenda portion. Those speakers will be called during the non-agenda portion of the meeting. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers regarding items listed on this afternoon's agenda?
Mayor Go, we have not received any speaker cards regarding items listed on tonight's agenda, nor for items that are not listed on tonight's agenda.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Reports item 3A, staff report from City Attorney regarding potential amendment to Charter Council salary.
Thank you. Madam City Attorney? Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. We have a PowerPoint presentation for you, and this afternoon I'm going to be talking to you about a potential charter amendment specifically related to council salary. A little bit of recap before we get into the meat of it. You may recall that back in June of last year at the 3:30 meeting, Moss Adams came to you and provided an overview of the city charter and presented to you a couple of different areas of the charter that could be modified to bring it into, let's say, a more modern document. At the conclusion of that meeting, there was a referral to the city attorney's office to return and give you some historical context, in particular for how the council would move forward if you wanted to move forward with a pay ballot measure in the year 2024. You also requested at the time that when we do the comparisons that we included the city of Oakland and the city of Long Beach in our analysis. So about 45 days later, I came back to you. That was on August 9th of 2023, and I think it's important to realize that neither council members Freeman or Core were at that particular meeting. It was at 3:30, and Ashley Zambrano listened to the video of that particular meeting so that I could accurately portray it to you. Again, I think it's important to kind of understand the backdrop there, but after I gave the PowerPoint presentation, which was about 17 minutes, the Vice Mayor made a motion. You can see that on the screen. It was a motion to continue discussion to potentially bring forward items at the general election, which would be this year, November of 2024. And we then went into a discussion. I was really not part of that discussion. You had about a 17-minute discussion with primarily Councilmember Clegg. Some of you voiced your opinions on the council pay issue, but it primarily was a discussion after that as to some of the other issues that you perhaps had an opportunity to address, whether it was changing the pronouns within the charter, or changing the franchise situation, or changing the civil service rules. It really wasn't any direction, and the mayor then said, well, you have a motion, cast your votes, and the motion passed 3-2 with council members Weir and Gray dissenting. So I say that to you because in taking away from that meeting, the one thing that I took away from that meeting is that you did not want the council pay issue to go in March of 2024, which is good because here we are. But other than that, there really wasn't any other direct direction to the city attorney's office to prepare for any type of ballot measure relative to council pay. So fast forward to last month, January 28th of 2024, City Manager Clay came to you, again, gave you an overview, kind of gave you an update of the spectrum of some of those items that could be put on the next ballot on November of 2024 with regard to a charter update. And again, there was a referral to the City Attorney's Office to revisit the council pay options and come back to you for a discussion. So it is in that vein, it is with that backdrop that I'm presenting the PowerPoint to you tonight. I will go through and tell you where the PowerPoint differs from August, but primarily this is a mirror image of what was presented to you in August of last year. And I started back then with a little bit of the history, and I just find it, I think you'll find it, maybe amusing is not the right word, but I think it's certainly interesting. But we were officially incorporated back in 1873, and we ran out of money. And so we had to disincorporate, and we did not really reincorporate until 1898, and our charter was not ratified until 1915, and our charter has about 12 articles to it. I did, back in August, explain to you the difference between a charter and a general law city. I don't think there's a need to go into that today. Suffice it to say that there are over 480 cities in the state of California, and there's only about 125 that are charter cities, and we're one of them. So we're in the minority there. But why does that matter for the discussion today? Well, it matters because when one amends a charter, you amend the charter the same way that one enacted the charter. And when we enacted it in 1915, it went to the voters. So if we want to amend the charter, we have to go to a general election. That's going to cost money. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that at the end of this presentation. Or you can, at certain times, you can receive petitions by 15% of the registered voters that reside within the city of Bakersfield. And typically when you're presented with something like that, it's a formality that the council simply approves it, and again, it goes to the voters. So let's talk about, let's hone in a little bit on why we're having this discussion. We're talking about council pay, and Section 18, that is the section of the charter where this language exists, and you can see this is the original language in 1915 from the charter. And while I don't usually read things, I think in this particular case, I will. It basically, at that point, said that the salaries of the councilmen first elected under this charter shall be $50 per month. Thereafter, the council may, by ordinance submitted to a referendum, at any municipal election, change the salary of members of the council. I added the emphasis to referendum and also to the word any. And so again, that's what we were talking about back in August. It was any election. So we could have gone next month. We could have gone in March of 2024. And again, the forefathers basically said, look, the first time you change this, you can either change it here in the charter, or you can go ahead and you can enact an ordinance. You can do a first reading and a second reading, but that's fine. You still have to give it to the voters through the referendum process and make sure that the voters approve that. I will tell you that Section 18 has never been successfully amended, and I'm going to go through that history with you. Again, we did not update this. I don't think there was really any need to. You can see the discrepancy. Back in August, this was on the PowerPoint. It shows you the top 10 cities. It shows you where Bakersfield is, and it followed through with the referral from one of you. It included Long Beach, and it included the city of Oakland. You see the little asterisk at the bottom, the $100. None of these includes any of the benefits from any of the cities, from Los Angeles to Anaheim, including Bakersfield. In the city of Bakersfield, depending on what level of insurance you are, whether you're a level 1, 2, or family plan, you can go anywhere from $0 all the way up to $3,000. But the base, your base salary, is $100 a month. Here's the chart for the survey cities. Again, shows you where the city of Bakersfield is, and same caveat with additional benefits. I believe last time Councilmember Kaur requested that we pull what the base salary is for your colleagues across the street. This is what we have determined. It's the total annual pay right now of a little over $110,000 a year. And now I just want to go through again the same historical aspect that I did a year ago, again with great help from the city clerk. Since 1920, there's been a total of 173 different charter amendments that the city of Bakersfield has proposed to its citizens. And of those 173, there's only been 6 ballot measures that really deal with council pay. It was in 1947, 1954. The main one was when I say the main one in 1956, the successful one was in 1956. We're going to get to that. 1974, 1988, and 1990. All of them failed, by the way. We're going to go through it, other than 1956. So 1947, again, you can see that was the actual language that went to the voters. And this time in 1947, your colleagues from that time, they wanted to amend the charter. They weren't interested in the code. They just wanted to amend the charter. And they wanted basically to say that you were going to serve without pay. And thankfully, that failed. So then in 1954, they decided to do it differently, and they said, let's do an ordinance. Let's put the ordinance in the code. And they said, let's just get $200 a month. That failed. In 1956, they decided to do the same thing. They went by way of an ordinance, but they said, let's do it $100 a month. And then, again, a little bit on the Board of Equalization. That's somewhat irrelevant for purposes of this discussion. But that actually passed. And it was an ordinance, number 1079. It went to the voters at a special election, not a general election. And when that happened, it was the ordinance, and that was the first ordinance that went into the code. Originally, I think it was under 2.12. Don't worry about that. It was later renumbered. And now, if you go look in our code under chapter 2.68, you will see where your salary is established at $100 a month because of that particular ordinance that the voters adopted. And that's where it is. Very simple language. The salary of council members shall be $100 per month. And then again, they added this section having to do with not just the Board of Equalization, but when you come and you sit through the lunch meetings regarding our annual budget, you get $20, not to exceed for 5 days. So if you're not getting that $20, let Christian know. So because that passed back in 1956, what happened is there was a little asterisk that went into our charter. So the charter, the first part of it stays identical to how it read in 1915, but there's one asterisk and it says, hey, this was increased to $100 a month, see section 2.68. So it's a very good cross-reference. 18 years later, back in 1974, your colleagues decided to try the charter amendment again. They didn't want to touch the ordinance. They were going to go back to the charter. And they said, why don't we just change the charter and have our salaries equal or equal to what our colleagues in general law cities get? That failed. In 1976, they went back and they said, let's try to amend the code, and we're going to go to $300 a month. That failed. Then again in 1988, they went back to the charter. They said, let's try to amend the charter again, and they went to $6,000. That failed. Tried it again in 1990. Again, this time they tried to amend the code for $700 a month, a minor increase really. That failed. There has not been any measure proposed on the ballot since 1990. And again, this section here in 1990 was actually presented to the voters as part of a special election. It did not go during a general election. We have not touched either the charter or the code relative to council salaries since 1990. All of this, again, was discussed back in August. This was also discussed back in August, and in front of you, you should have a one-page, it's entitled Legiscan. It's front and back. I put it on the dais for all of you. There was a new law that actually went into effect in June of last year. It modifies the government code, and basically what it says is if you're a general law city or you're a charter city, and you're a charter city that is silent on the topic of council pay, and I'm going to get back to that, but that's very important. We are not right now, we're not silent on it, right? Because we have it in our charter and we have it in our code. But if you were silent on it, this new law basically says your salary can be determined by ordinance based on your population. So assuming we were silent on it, we obviously have a population of over 250,000 people, and so the maximum amount per month would be $3,200 per month. There is a CPI escalator that's in there. You can read that on that third bullet. You can also read it as part of the Legiscan that I gave you. The ordinance would not allow you to provide for automatic increases. I'm going to get back on that on this. So here are the options, and again, these options for the most part have remained the same, although I would tell you that I have, I think, made them a little bit more concise for your consideration tonight, because if you're going to do this, we need to get going and we need to do it. Option number one, you can leave the charter and the code the way it is. Option number two, you can submit a measure to the voters in 2024 that repeals the charter and the BMC section. And this would be a sample. Shall Section 18 of the charter and the BMC section 2.68 be repealed in their entirety? Why did I say that to you? I said that to you because if you were to repeal both the charter and the code, you would then be silent on the topic. If you were silent on the topic, you then go back to the law that I talked to you about that was new in June of last year. You could theoretically then enact an ordinance, have first reading, have second reading, and you would be at $3,200 a month. You would not have to go to the voters. If you did that, again, I think it's little b as in boy on that Legiscan tells you that if you wanted less than that or you wanted more than that, you could go to the voters for that. But at a minimum, you could at least establish $3,200 a month if you were silent on the topic. That's option two. Option three, we could submit a measure to the voters again in November of 2024, which would amend both the code and it would add, I would say, 2 asterisks to the charter. We would keep the first one and then we would add a second one. Again, it would say something simple: shall the city of Bakersfield fix the pay of council members at? And you need to tell me what that number is. I don't know what that number is. It's a policy decision. But again, this option would allow you to put a salary, to put a number in there that's higher than the $3,200 a month should you be silent on the topic. The last option, this slide is new. I did not have it back in August, and I think it does have some merit, and that is to wait until November of 2026, get a little bit of feedback from the community on the pay issue. I don't know how much feedback your previous councils had in 1956 when it was, when it was successful. But perhaps, again, perhaps there's a grassroots effort that favors a particular path forward. Maybe they even submit a petition, as I indicated to you earlier in the PowerPoint, where there's 15%. They don't have to, but at least you would have some type of, I guess, fuel to kind of help you, guide you in terms of which option number 2 or option number 3 that you wanted to move forward with. Why do I say we need to get moving? Well, you have more than a couple of meetings. You have about 7 meetings left until really the rubber meets the road. And if you're going to do something, we basically need to know, I need to know, the clerk needs to know what it is that you want to do, because you have a couple of meetings where you need to decide which approach do you want to take. Do you want to repeal the ordinance and the charter and be silent? Do you want to amend the ordinance and the charter provision and put in a different amount? What is that amount? What is that amount to be? When is it going to take effect? Some of you caught me a little bit off guard back in January. You talked about, well, it's not going to be effective on the current council. It'll go into effect at some time in the future. Well, you need to have that discussion. You need to have a majority of you tell me what does that language look like to you. We have to determine what the ballot label language is. And again, that's very specific. For some of you that were here when we recently changed the charter to allow the city manager to choose an individual from outside the police department to be your potential next chief of police, that took quite a few meetings. I mean, we were here at 3:30 and we were working until 5 o'clock to really get that language down that you felt comfortable with in presenting to the voters. So again, this is the last slide, and then I'm open for questions and direction. Option 1, again, leave everything alone. Option 2, repeal the charter and the code by way of a measure. Option 3, amend the code by way of a measure and add a second asterisk. Or option 4, wait until November of 2026 and get support from the community. My thought would be that should you choose that, there probably should be some additional guideline as to how you want to do that. You know, are you going to establish an ad hoc committee? Are you going to direct a particular department to kind of gather some support? But that you would certainly have enough time to do that. And so with that, I am open for questions.
Councilmember Freeman.
Well, I would like to say I'm for option 4. I'd like to hear what my colleagues have to say, but I think getting feedback from the community makes a lot of sense. We don't really know how they feel. We know that in the past they defeated every time. So I think you're very handicapped when you don't gather information first and we just throw something out there. I think that's a, very minor chance of succeeding, and we spend money on it. So I think it's kind of a waste of time, especially when you don't go to the community. And I don't know what form that takes, but I know for the most part, the business community is the one who is going to be against it unless you persuade them they shouldn't be. And that's why workshops and talking with people and listening, I won't say just to them, but I'd say especially to them because they have a lot of influence. I think that'd be the best way to go. The only other thing I'd say is if you really, I would add a fourth choice to your $3,200 a month and all that. If you really want to get this over with and just put something out that might pass, if you just said, council gets minimum wage for the hours they put in, and I was adding up, okay, a couple of council meetings, some committees, maybe that's 15 to 20 hours a week, and even if you use $20 an hour, $300 to $400 a month, fine. That the community might say, well, that's not much. You probably have to estimate it at, but because it's still very de minimis, but I think you'd get more sympathy for, well, should we at least pay a minimum wage for the hours they put in? It's still a service job, it's still a sacrifice, and I think you might eke that one by. I don't think you get anything else passed.
Mayor, if I may, there's two things.
Yes.
One, I forgot to add. In talking with the city clerk, it looks like it's going to cost a minimum of $175,000 to move forward with in November of 2024. And if I could, Mayor, with your permission, respond to Councilmember Freeman on the prevailing on the minimum wage. I would just tell you that if you really want to do that, and you have a majority of your colleagues that want to go that route, I would tell you that I would absolutely recommend that you wait until November of 2026, because I can tell you right now, and sitting here, that I can think of so many problems with that option, and I'm just sitting here hearing it for the first time. First of all, I'd like to know if you're going to get time cards and if you're going to clock in and clock out. And then if I'm a member of the public, I am absolutely going to put in a public records request, and I am going to get those time cards from you, and I'm going to audit you to make sure that you are spending
you
that
have to
much
make
time.
it so complicated.
Well, that's what you pay me the big bucks
All right.
for.
All right,
But
I'm convinced, forget it.
Okay, but the language on that too would have to say, is it the minimum wage now? Is it do you get a cost escalator? So these are the types of things. These are good discussions to have, Councilmember Freeman. I'm glad you brought it up, but this is the type of dialogue that has to
You're
occur.
right. All of that could be if you took it to the public and you had
Right.
workshops. One alternative: do you pay them in wage? One, do you pay them $1,000? One, do you, and let them discuss everything.
Correct.
You're right. It was just a thought, but I've said my piece.
Thank you, City Attorney. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Jenny, can we go back to the slide that outlined the different times that this has been brought to the voters? Thank you. Since 1947, 6 ballot measures proposed to voters. So a couple of thoughts. Number one is if we took a look at, let's say, the year 1900, council members were receiving $50 a month. $50 in 1900 has the equivalent purchasing power today to about $1,800 a month. So we could argue that council members in 1900 were being paid considerably more than council members today. If we look at 1956, where an increase was passed, they were awarded $100 a month, compensated, I should say, $100 a month. That has the equivalent purchasing power to today to about $1,120. There again, so council members throughout time until the cost of living increased were being compensated at higher levels. And the reason why is because this is a commitment of time. Sure, it is a public service, and we all signed up for this job to run in Bakersfield, California, knowing the compensation level. And it is a public service for me. But as we look towards future councils, I think we ought to address this issue. I like what Councilmember Freeman has brought up. I think it is really important for us to hear from the community, hear from stakeholders that have been good partners with the city over the years, particularly in our last ballot measure in 2018 when we adopted the Public Safety and Vital Services Initiative. And I would like to make a motion tonight that we direct the city manager's office and the city attorney's office to work with key stakeholders, including but not limited to the Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Black Chamber of Commerce, the Realtors Association, the Current Taxpayers Association, to begin a conversation about council pay and ask the Chamber of Commerce to lead a coalition, a committee, community committee, that would then develop a recommendation for this council as we look towards November 2026.
Thank you. Now, Councilmember Smith, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I agree with Councilmember Freeman. I think, that the timing is such that my experience since I've been on the council going on 12 years is that most of the community thinks when people come up to me, you guys should get paid more. You should get paid something. But to really engage the community and have conversations makes sense to me. So I would agree with that direction. I would ask how much can staff be involved? I guess it's not like PSVS where it was a tax measure and staff could not advocate or really be involved.
Madam City Attorney.
Mayor, Councilmember Smith, that's correct. We're not going to be able to really spend tax money, and that includes time, in order to, I would say, kind of get this up off the ground. I'm not really, I would assume at some point that the Vice Mayor would appoint some type of an ad hoc committee to really do most of the laboring ore there. As a city attorney, I would tell you that I am reluctant to do much of it because I have to write the impartial analysis. And I think we could just do a little bit in terms of getting it up and running, but then we'd have to turn it over. We'd have to turn it over to the chamber, turn it over to the ad hoc or something along those lines. But very, very little, to answer your question.
Okay,
very
so
little.
Very similar then to
It's
the
identical.
PSVS. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, in other words, I could see us perhaps sending out an invitation or something along those lines, but then I would want someone from the council to kind of take the lead with the chamber, so Christian and I can look to that individual.
Well, you mentioned ad hoc committee, but I mean, staff attends those and stuff, so that really wouldn't,
We would not be able to do that. That's correct, which is why I indicated it would have to be an ad hoc committee because that's generally not covered by the Brown Act and it wouldn't be staffed by staff.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Thank
Very
you.
similar, as the Vice Mayor said, to PSVS, the engagement of the stakeholders. Staff was pretty much not involved.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Weir.
Thank you, Mayor. So one thing that I do want you to know is I was watching TV the other night, and one of the ladies that's running for our Senate position stated that she thinks minimum wage should be $50 an hour. So I don't think we want to do that. And I like putting this off till 2026. It gives us time to think about it. I didn't really hear very well the last part of the Vice Mayor's comments on that, so maybe you could just repeat that for me.
Yeah, the motion was to defer this to November 2026 and to direct staff to reach out to key stakeholders to begin a conversation and request that they form a committee to develop recommendations and bring them back to the full city council. And I identified a few key organizations that I could think of, but I would not want to limit it to those key organizations, but would ask that the Chamber of Commerce, Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce, actually take the lead on this effort.
Okay. I'm a little leery on having the Chamber of Commerce be the spot on all of this. I think they need to be involved in it, but it's not just a chamber, it's not just a business thing. This is for the entire community. And there's a lot more people that need to be involved in that other than just the chamber or some other, taxpayer association. They'll be involved, but we need to broaden that out some to where everybody would have a chance to speak and participate in that. And I hope that we can do that. And I think we want to make sure that that we have an organization or a group that is very far-reaching far-looking in what we're doing. So when we actually do start this process, everybody knows about what it is that we're trying to accomplish. There's nothing behind the table. It's all above board. And I think we need maybe somebody other than just the chamber. I think we need to go out and interview people that could make this work for us and go from there. I don't really want to kind of box us in tonight. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Mayor, no, Councilmember Weir, thank you so much for the comments. I agree with you. I don't want us to limit the conversation to our business associations. I was just thinking as a practical matter, what organization in the community really is best positioned and has capacity to actually lead out on an effort. So I agree with you and I hear your concern. I would like to amend my motion to direct staff to bring back this item in a future council meeting and establish a timeline so that we can work on this committee and actually work towards the November 2026 timeline.
Thank you. Thank you. That's much better for me.
I would also indicate, and again, I defer to the council on this, I have no problem taking this PowerPoint presentation to all of the groups that the vice mayor mentioned and any other group that a council member so desires, and giving this, it's facts, and letting that group know that, hey, your council is looking for your input, and so reach out to the vice mayor, reach out to your council member, let them know, where you stand on it, and maybe in that vein, maybe the grassroots effort, again, just kind of gets started. It's a seed to it. But I hear your motion, and certainly that can be done.
So are we amending your motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gray.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I just wanted to go on record that I do support this motion that's on the table with option 4. I do think we need to have community input. But the last time this was brought up, I almost felt, I left here feeling like things should have been explained to the public better. We always talk about $100 a month compensation. Well, it's not $100 a month. It's $100 a month to serve. It's $780 a month, roughly, for mileage, plus our health insurance, plus our dental insurance, plus our eye insurance. And for me, that's a total package of over $20,000 to sit on this dais. So I felt like that needed to come forward, that people understand what our total compensation is. Even though you call it benefits, it's still not $100 a month. So that was the thing that the last time I wish I had brought forward. I didn't bring it forward, so I want to bring that forward for the public's information. But I do think if I'm satisfied with just leaving everything as it is, but if my colleagues feel like that we need to get more community input, then I can support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gray. Councilmember Kaur.
Ginny, just a question for you. With the Senate bill that we're reviewing, what takes hierarchy, just so I have an understanding of the legal process, city charters versus state law, and does this mean that we are not complying with this state law? How does that work, if you could help me understand the legal point of view?
Mayor, Councilmember Kaur, the way that this particular law is written, it would apply if you're silent. So our charter basically trumps. But as I say, if you change that charter, you then follow state law.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Just in conversation with our colleagues, it's clear that the vast majority are leaning towards option 4, and based on kind of the community discussions that will come from this, I firmly believe it'll come to light that this is something that is sorely needed, necessary, and delayed within our city. And in reviewing the list of cities kind of across the state and those closer to us in population, having a more modern context to a city that's growing as quickly as ours is, cities much smaller than us have understood the need to allow for teachers, firefighters, electricians, folks who are retired and still have expenses, veterans, those folks who still had demanding jobs, still have demanding have demanding needs within their lives, who aren't able to see themselves as being policymakers locally because it's not sustainable. Having council pay is more of an appreciation of your time and treats it like the real work that it is, and goes beyond sometimes even what a full-time job requires. So I liked Councilmember Freeman's point of the minimum wage question and that being a possibility to explore, but I at least wanted to just share that folks in the community, the sentiment is still strong that, as Councilmember Smith mentioned, folks are in disbelief when they learn that this isn't something that comes with some kind of it doesn't mirror what they've heard of in other cities, and also their own expectations of their council person. Residents are expecting for their council people to be available full-time to meet the needs of their district. And I think that's actually where the gap is the expectation is that we are available full-time, we are there, we're serving, but it's challenging. And I'll speak for myself as someone who is a young person who has attained higher education and is on the council, but would love to be able to focus my full-time energy here. It is, the reality is that you basically work 2 full-time jobs. And in the future, I hope that's not the reality for other young people, other retired folks, people who see themselves joining a council and being able to give back into their community, and knowing that maybe we missed the mark some places because this isn't full-time. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman.
Just two remarks. One, if in future years you did, significantly expand the compensation for council members so they had salaries and staff, remember you will have to significantly expand city manager staff to service those people. So you could probably multiply it by 5 how much money it would cost you, because they will need staff to service the staff. Anyway, but what I'd like sort of added to the purpose of whatever committees formed, task force, which won't be the city, it'll need to be whoever the chambers, all the service clubs, how you get out to the community. But you might, Jenny, you might consider expanding your PowerPoint, because one of the reasons you probably always have this turned down is nobody knows what the council does and doesn't associate any value with what the council people do. Not nobody, but the vast majority, and I mean the majority, do not know what city council people do. They don't know what city council is in charge of. I don't think we have a terrible problem in getting people to run for office. When any of us run unopposed, that's not a good thing. It means nobody cares, nobody's interested. Lots of capable people could step forward and don't. And I don't think the community knows what we do, therefore doesn't attach any value to it. I don't think it's that they don't step forward because of $100 a month. I think they just say, you guys don't do anything. What do you do? I have people call me to talk about school issues, or why aren't we fixing Isabella Dam? None of the things the county's in charge of. They do not know what the city council does. And therefore, it's hard to ascribe value to an organization when you have no idea what they do in the first place. So I think that's a big problem. And if we could maybe combine the purposes of this, whatever task force communication effort, to educate what does your city council do anyway, so that they knew. If you're going to talk about compensation for what? What do these people do? I think it's very important that our community, which knows, I think, less to nothing about what the city council does, they don't know what the county does either. But we have a big educational problem here in awareness, and I think maybe we could help solve the problem a little, and we'd get more people stepping forth to serve and run for office. And that would be a huge benefit to the community if they finally knew, oh, maybe it's worth doing whether they get paid or not. But right now, I think we did a man on the street quiz. 9 out of 10 of them would have no idea what the city council did. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, 2 comments. One to Councilmember Freeman. Great point. I agree with you. Many people do not know what a city council does or what each council member really is responsible for, and what really is our fault and not, by the way. But also, I think one of the things that we now have at our advantage and at our disposal is that we are now tracking all these different issues and service requests that come into the city in our respective wards. So I think that might be a really valuable tool to share with the community, actually what really each one of us in each ward is addressing every single month. And then finally, the reason I buzzed in to speak again was I wanted to lift up Councilmember Gray's point in total compensation. I think that's a really important point. I think, we really need to have an honest conversation with our constituents, with the citizens of Bakersfield about really what we're talking about here. And it is total compensation. We should share that, in fact, we do receive health benefits and other health-related benefits, but so do other cities. And that has to be outlined as well. And I think that even still, when you see comparatively, we are still far below the average. And so we should do some additional legwork and research to get fairer comparisons and really shed some more light on what really is the total compensation and how that relates to the total compensation in other places. I know that's much more difficult than what we did before with Moss Adams, but I think that work is required in order for us to have a real meaningful conversation with our community.
Thank you. Now, Councilmember Smith, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just reinforce a couple items. Coming back with a timeline and, how this really falls out, because we're kind of extending because we let it slip in my mind a little bit. So 2 years flies by pretty fast. So, what really is the plan? And I would say this, reinforce also that, that educating the community on what council actually does. When I answer my cell phone's numbers on the website, and when I answer it, they're surprised. I thought I'd get staff. I thought I'd get somebody, but so. And nobody mentioned we have committee meetings. We have a lot of conversations and a lot of time, and we do a lot of things. And, I'm proud of the progress that the city makes and where we're going. And so I think that's part of the education. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say really quickly that I agree with just about everybody on this dais on this issue. I think it's wise of us to support the Vice Mayor's motion and move forward with a ballot measure for 2026, engaging all of our community and stakeholders. I just wanted to make a quick comment. If I'm not mistaken, it was last year when we were having conversations about moving forward with the park rangers. And there was considerable conversation about how much we should pay those individuals. At the time, we had not adjusted for the rest of city staff, and there was some concerns because we had gone just a little bit over to make sure that our park rangers were going to be compensated at a competitive level, not just do what we do for the rest of staff. And most of the rationale for that was that there were some serious concerns because of COVID, because of the Great Retirement, that we could not get anybody in the door to apply in the first place. And furthermore, the second concern was that we wouldn't get folks who were actually competitive for the jobs that they were applying for. Well, we went out on a limb and we decided that we were going to move forward with that pay rate, which was higher than the rest of city staff for those similar positions. I believe we floated 18 to 20 positions, if I'm not mistaken, Christian. And I hate to put you on the spot, but how many applications did we get for those 18 to 20 positions? I want to say it was more than 100 or more.
Yeah, so Councilmember Arias, Mayor and Council, just a couple quick data points, best I can off memory. I would reflect that we on the where we landed on the salary, we did tier it at the same tier as code enforcement. So I want to be clear that we weren't necessarily paying a higher wage than like positions that we thought were at that level of responsibility. But we did say we do recommend that higher level of responsibility, not a lower level entry position. It is for 18 positions. We did have more than 100 applicants. We actually had 60 qualified that met all of our minimum qualifications. It was a long set of interviews, but did lead to having a very large candidate pool of very qualified folks. We've had some challenging entry-level classifications that have continued to see turnover over the last 2 to 3 years that may run a 10% vacancy rate, which is above average. If you look at an industry standard, it's probably a 5% vacancy rate. And for our park rangers, we were actually able to fill 16 of those 18 positions within about a 2 to 3 month period and move really fast because we had a very strong candidate pool and we've had very little turnover since we hired those folks.
Thank you so much for that information. I think the point holds true that when you make these salaries competitive, whether that be for staff or for this council, we should use the same rationale. Make it competitive, and getting back to Councilmember Freeman's point, that is part of what we have to do in order to increase participation at the highest of levels. So with that, I support the Vice Mayor's motion.
Thank you, Councilmember Arias. Councilmember Kaur.
Just to return to Councilmember Freeman, you had made a point about the staffing and an interesting kind of survey of other cities with each council. For example, in the city of Fresno, which I referenced previously, but they more recently, in more recent history, have kind of changed their layout, council pay, and that sort of thing. But what I've learned from folks who are like the chief of staffs of their city councils, those folks actually remain even longer than some of the council members themselves. And so they retain this institutional knowledge that becomes not a burden to the city manager's office in their city or for other departments, actually becomes supportive and actually supplements the work. And they kind of have a history that they're able to share across those offices. Not only that, but those who end up taking up jobs as legislative assistants, admin assistants, chiefs of staff, and who tend to work for these city council members have ran for office themselves. So they had such an intimate experience with learning how city governance works. They were able to imagine themselves in those offices, and I think that is an important place to cultivate local leaders as well, and not necessarily just think of it as like a financial burden, but if we want to really imagine how we are, you're saying that any election where someone doesn't run against you is, that's not a good thing. I agree. I think in any working democracy, you have a competitive election, but it's also for us to think of how we're creating those positions where leadership can be cultivated in the most intimate way. And I can't think of a better way than young people or anyone really to have the opportunity to do even legislative research at the very local level, at the city level, and even folks who work in City Hall. Maybe we'll be able to recruit them to work and do some of that legislative research. But I wanted to add that as being something that maybe goes into the points discussed when we see this move forward. So. And I wanted to echo Councilmember Arias's point of making it competitive. We may start with a minimum wage, but if this is something we're punching to 2026, we might as well research how this becomes a livable wage for folks to actually see themselves there and transition from other careers and see themselves as policymakers as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other requests to speak. You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is unanimously approved.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Closed session, item 4A. Conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, closed session regarding Bring Back the Kern Water Audit California et al. Versus City of Bakersfield et al.
Move to adjourn to closed session.
We're adjourned to closed session. And welcome. It looks like we have some students in the audience. Welcome. It's always good to have you here. We go into closed session. We'll be back for the next meeting, which starts around 5:15 or whenever we finish that session. But thank you for being here. Reconvening the 3:30 City Council meeting. Madam City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. There was only one item tonight in closed session, and there is no reportable action on that item. It should be reflected that Councilmember Kaur recused herself based on a potential source of income and appearance of impropriety. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we stand adjourned at 5:27. Thank you all for being so patient. We will start the next meeting in just a few minutes. We need to give technology just a minute to switch out and our council members to come in from closed session. But thank you all. Is the young person who is leading the pledge here yet?
Welcome to the Bakersfield City Council meeting. This television broadcast is brought to you by the local cable companies, the County of Kern, and the City of Bakersfield. You can watch the rebroadcast of this meeting Saturday at 7 p.m., Sunday at 10 a.m., and the following Wednesday at 7 p.m. You can download the agenda for this meeting at www.bakersfieldcity.us. Presiding over this evening's meeting, the Honorable Mayor Karen K. Go.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to call to order the 5:15 regular City Council meeting of February 14th, 2024. Welcome to all of you. We're glad that you're here. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Go?
Here.
Vice Mayor Gonzalez?
Here.
Councilmember Arias?
Here.
Councilmember Weir?
Here.
Councilmember Smith?
I am here.
Councilmember Freeman?
Here.
Councilmember Gray?
Here.
Councilmember Kaur?
Here.
Thank you. Tonight we have the pleasure of having Monsignor Perry Kavukian, pastor of St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Catholic Church, to offer the invocation. He's beloved and known for his humor and compassion, and under the Monsignor's leadership, the parish has grown to approximately 4,000 families. St. Elizabeth Ann Seton is the first parish in the diocese in 40 years, and its blessing bag has helped so many in our unsheltered community. We're very, very grateful. And following that, we'll have the invocation. I just want to make sure that Daniela is not in the audience. Don't see her, so in which case, Council Member Weir will offer the invocation. Would you all please stand? I mean, the flag salute, sorry. Monsignor?
Thank you so much for the invitation to offer the invocation this evening. This is not only Valentine's Day, but it's also the beginning of Lent, Ash Wednesday, for many Christians throughout the community who are beginning the 40-day period of preparation for Easter. So lots of exciting things happening today. Let us pray. Father and God of all people, we ask your blessing on these your servants, our mayor and city council members, and all who have been called and chosen to lead our community in which we live and work and play. Guide their discussions this evening. Give them the wisdom and courage to do what is right and good and just for all the residents of our city. Be with all of us who call Bakersfield home. Help us to care for one another, regardless of our politics, religiosity, ethnicity, or walk of life. Help us to find ways of alleviating the burden that many people carry: the homeless, the poor, the immigrant, the unemployed, the incarcerated, the sick, and the elderly. Give us a generous heart so that we may respond with love to those who live on the margins, those who are alone, and those who are forgotten. We thank you for our diverse community: farmers, business people, first responders, corporate workers, healthcare providers, religious leaders, teachers, and all who work hard for a living, thus contributing to the well-being of our city. And on this Valentine's Day, Father, grant us a healthy dose of love for each other so that we may demonstrate the true heart and spirit of our city. We ask this in the name of Jesus, your Son, who is our Lord and brother. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. You may be seated. Monsignor, thank you so much. You're welcome to stay, or if you need to leave, we certainly understand that. Here are a few guidelines to help our meeting run smoothly. We request that you turn off your phones. Please be courteous in the use of cameras and videos for safety reasons, and as a courtesy to others, no signs are allowed in the council chambers or in the lobby. Applause is allowed during the presentations portion of the meeting, but not during other portions of the meeting. Everyone in attendance is expected to adhere to the rules of decorum established by resolution of the City Council. Failure to abide by the city's rules of decorum, including any disruptive behavior that interferes with our ability to have an orderly and efficient meeting, prevents the City Council from conducting the business of the city. Consider this a first warning to everyone in attendance that conduct that disrupts this meeting may result in expulsion and/or the chambers being cleared. Behavior that disrupts the meeting includes repetitive statements, going off topic, shouting, outbursts from the audience, and surpassing the 2-minute time limit. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Public statements.
Thank you. In keeping with Council's resolution, the public statements portion is now divided into 2 periods. There's a period for items listed on the meeting agenda and items not on the meeting agenda. Statements for items listed on tonight's agenda are given a 2-minute time limit, 20 minutes total per agenda item. The consent calendar as a whole constitutes 1 agenda item. Statements regarding items not listed on the agenda are given a 2-minute time limit, 20 minutes total. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, give them to the clerk, who will give copies to the council. If you're here to make a public statement, please fill out a public speaker card and give your completed card to the city clerk. We ask that you mark whether you're here to speak on an item listed on tonight's agenda or in a matter not on the agenda. Speakers who do not identify a specific agenda item will be presumed speakers for the non-agenda portion. Those speakers will be called during the non-agenda portion of the meeting. We're very interested and concerned with your issues. However, due to the public notice requirement of the Brown Act, the council cannot take action when an item isn't on the agenda. The council can, however, refer your matter to committee or request that staff contact you. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers regarding items listed on tonight's agenda?
Mayor Go, we've received one public speaker card for items listed on tonight's agenda. The first public speaker is Jose Rangel regarding item 6A.
Thank you. Welcome. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hi. Wow, I'm nervous. A lot of people. Jose Rangel, seeking to speak on item agenda 6A. I was looking to also say something else, but I don't think time will allow it upon my non-agenda listed item. I want to allow those in attendance their opportunity to speak. So I will merge what I have to say into this. I'm being considered for the vacancy on Ward 2. Keep Bakersfield, beautiful committee, the alternate vacancy. And I just wanted to say a few things. Allow me. There's an old saying out there. They say, time will justify a man who means to do right. But who's to justify what is right and what is wrong? The judge? He's no more human than you or me. The jury? Hell, the jury couldn't spell legislation by themselves even if you wrote it out for them. So again, I ask, what constitutes right and what constitutes wrong? Consensus. A consensus that establishes that my neighbors out in Seven Oaks are no better than my neighbors out in Sumner. A consensus that establishes that my neighbors out on Mount Vernon Avenue are no worse than my neighbors down at the Stockdale Country Club. We're all just merely playing the hand we were dealt. But as of late, I'm under the impression that it's time to shuffle the deck. Bakersfield used to be Kern Island. This used to be alfalfa field. Used to be a place you could leave your horses to graze. It was a place no visitor went hungry. Miss Helen Baker wouldn't allow it, not in 100 years. This September marks 100 years since her passing. I'm sorry, but may I have 30 more seconds?
You can go ahead and finish. You have about 5 more seconds.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead and bring your comments to a close, please.
Thank you. Allow me to regain myself. My eyes are sometimes too big for my plate, but I never bite off more than I can chew. I envision greatness. I envision prosperity. I envision understanding. I envision the unity, growth, and development of my community and communities surrounding.
Thank you, Mr. Rangel.
May I have 20 more seconds?
We have finished 2 minutes, and I've gone over 2 minutes, so
I understand,
that would be
Miss.
the end. Thank you very much for your comments. Madam Clerk, do we have any others related to the agenda?
Mayor Go, we have no other speakers relating to agenda items.
Thank you. Do we have any public speakers regarding items not listed on the agenda?
Mayor Go, we've received 19 public speaker cards for items not listed on tonight's agenda. I will call the first 3 speakers.
Yes, go ahead. And so she's going to call them just so you can be ready for your turn so we can move through quickly. Go ahead, Madam Clerk, please.
Oscar Iniego, Lorena Salinas, Mildred Gonzalez.
Thank you. And just a reminder, when you come up here, just adjust the microphone so that we can hear you, either raise or lower it. Welcome, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Oscar Iniego. I'm coming over here to see what's going on. Mr. Gonzalez, I feel that you still remember me over phone calls that we had 2 years ago on the agenda of having sidewalks and so forth put around the area on Ward 3. So I don't know whether I should direct my question to Mr. Weir of what's going on with our area over there that I was told at one time that we're going to have sidewalks put in, and to this date, nothing has happened. So I'd like an explanation of what's going on. I know it's a budget thing, money, whatever, but it keeps on getting diverted somewhere else. I feel real strongly that if our area gets a little bit improvement, maybe people would improve their homes and so forth like that. But yet, there's nothing coming out from anybody, whether it's a city, however that works, I don't know. But again, I'm here for that reason, is to find an explanation of why our part of the area is not getting any type of attention, being sidewalks, road maintenance, and so forth. And I addressed Mr. Gonzalez one time that there's a safety issue over there, kids walking on the street when there's vehicles passing at a moderate fast way, and nobody's doing nothing about it. It's a safety issue. There's people on wheelchairs because there's no sidewalks. They're going on the street also. So, being said, I'd like to know why we're getting pushed aside and nothing happening to Ward 3 and our area. Could somebody please explain that to me?
Thank you, Mr. Inigo. We have a request from the Vice Mayor and then Councilmember Ware.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, sir, for being here this evening. Because of redistricting, this is no longer a part of my ward, but I had been working on it, and Mr. Stracklus and Public Works team had been working on, I believe, a design for Homemaker Park. And I believe it was we were working through a CDBG funding. I'm sorry? What was the exact intersection? It was off of Q and?
28th.
28th.
Yes, 28th Street.
Yeah, so we are working on the funding source in order for us to progress with the project. Mr. Clegg, did you have an update?
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor. We typically fund large-scale areas that don't have curb gutter and sidewalk through our Community Development Block Grant Program. It is unfortunate that we have many areas of the historic neighborhoods in the city or areas that have been annexed in from the county that don't have curb gutter and sidewalk. So we've had a long list of those type of projects. But we did get the 28th Street area in queue, and it is actually in this current CDBG action plan to do curb gutter and sidewalk in that area this cycle. It took a couple cycles to get to that project, but it is funded.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clegg. Councilmember Ware.
Thank you. I don't have anything further to add to that or ask about it, but could you keep me updated on the progress in that area? And we'll see if we can get that completed for you.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilmember Ware. And thank you. Your time is up, and staff will follow up with you. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Lorena Salinas, followed by Mildred Gonzalez, followed by Adela.
So if you're in the middle and she's already called your name, if you could move somewhere where you can get up quickly, please. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Alrighty. Hello, City Council. My name is Lorena Salinas. In the 21 days since the last City Council meeting, the ICJ has determined that there is clear evidence of genocide being conducted by Israel against the people of Palestine. They have listed the war crimes and ordered Israel to stop all actions that would lead to the deaths of any more Palestinians. Also, in those 21 days, Israel has ignored the orders of the International Court of Justice and continued to massacre civilians in a full-scale attack against Rafah that is reminiscent of the Nazi final solution, bringing the total number of deaths up to over 30,000. That is over 30,000 human lives that have been completely erased. Some of those being relatives of community members that we have here. With blatant disregard for international law and humanity, Israel is also blocking humanitarian aid from reaching the displaced refugees and has increased the severity of their brutality with impunity. Under the ICJ ruling, these are deliberate acts of genocide, and anyone who contributes to this genocide should be held equally accountable. By allowing our tax dollars and resources to be used to fund this genocide, you are all complicit. By saying, I stand with Israel, like Mayor Karen Go has stated, you stand with genocide. You stand for infants being murdered. You stand for civilians being shot while in line waiting to receive humanitarian aid. You stand for an entire culture and people being erased for the sake of profit. My fellow community members of Bakersfield and I are here to say that we do not stand for this, and we do not consent to our hard-earned money being used to fund this war machine. We call on you to pass an immediate ceasefire resolution, to stand with your community, and to send a message to our state and federal governments to end all contributions to the senseless killing. Now is your chance to really show what values you uphold and what kind of people you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Salinas. Just a reminder to the audience that this is not a forum where we can have noise interrupting the speaker. So I'm just going to ask you not to disrupt the meeting, please. Next speaker, please.
Mildred Gonzalez, followed by Adela, followed by Ghassan K.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, thank you. I'm here today to address you with a heavy heart, concerned about the dire situation in the Gaza Strip in Palestine. For too long, their voices have been silenced by oppression and violence. It is our moral duty to amplify their voices and demand an end to their plight. In the besieged Gaza Strip, over 2 million Palestinians, including innocent children, women, and the elderly, suffer from poverty, unemployment, and malnutrition. The Israeli blockades, now in the 15th year, has devastated their economy, turning Gaza into an open-air prison. Hospitals lack supplies, clean water is scarce, and electricity is limited. The consequences are devastating. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza worsens due to excessive use by force by the Israeli military, resulting in countless civilian casualties, including innocent children. Schools, hospitals, and residential areas have been targeted, leaving destruction and despair behind. The situation in the occupied West Bank is equally dire, with systematic discrimination, arbitrary arrests, and land confiscation. The illegal construction of the Israeli settlements violates international law and undermines peace prospects. We cannot remain silent. We must condemn the Israeli occupation and demand a ceasefire. Let's offer vital humanitarian assistance to Gaza and Palestine, aiding them in rebuilding their lives and communities. Their struggle is our struggle for justice, equality, and self-determination. Together, we stand in solidarity, demanding an end to their suffering. Let us make it clear to the world that we won't tolerate the continued occupation and oppression of the Palestinian people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Next speaker, please.
Adela, followed by Ghassan, followed by Sophia Galvan.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Adelaide, and I'm 12 years old. I am here in support of a ceasefire in Gaza because as a 12-year-old, I am hearing about kids my age and younger getting killed in front of their families, then their families getting killed right next to them. I was raised by my parents and my family all around me talking about how I should always have a voice on the topics I believe in, and to speak for the children that can't use their voice or some that are too scared to speak up. And I want people to know that what is happening in the world right now is not okay. And if we want change, we have to use our voices for a change. And I don't want to grow up in a world where there is no peace and people keep getting hurt. And I want to see kids have the same freedom that I do right now. I was nervous to come here today because I know this topic is unpopular to the city council members, and they think this topic is too big of an issue to change. But because of the many history lessons my teacher has taught me, what my family has taught me, I know that change doesn't happen from staying silent. So I came here today to be brave and speak of my opinion of the kind of world I want to live in. because the decisions the decisions of our world leaders affects my future. In conclusion, I am here to encourage City Council to vote for a ceasefire because my future depends on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your bravery. It's not easy to speak in front of an audience, and thank you for speaking. Next speaker, please.
Gassan Kay, followed by Sophia Galvin, followed by Carter Beardsley.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Ghassan Kanafani, and I join you guys here today as a Palestinian constituent of Bakersfield, raised between Bakersfield and Palestine. From my earliest years here, I've experienced hostility at every turn, from racist teachers and faculty who will openly denigrate me in front of my peers, fellow students and peers, to law enforcement showing up at my doorstep for speaking openly about my experiences in Palestine, to harassment in this very city by people who have served with the Israeli Defense Forces in the occupation of my people, to having a mayor who wasted no time, less than 48 hours, in issuing a statement standing with the people of Israel following October 7th. Yet, after 5 months of a brutal, wanton, remorseless genocide that has seen over 35,000 slaughtered, has yet to find it within herself to so much as issue a moment of lip service in support of her very own Palestinian community. A community that includes Palestinian families, such as my own, who have fled the violence and depravity of Israel's decade-long occupation, ethnic cleansing, and colonization of our lands. Doctors, lawyers, business leaders, and people from every walk of life who continue to exist and contribute to a city that had yet to ever in its history acknowledge our very existence. Vice Mayor Andre Gonzalez, when asked about a ceasefire resolution, you did what you do best and deflected, claiming that there's nothing much we can do at the city council's office, unable to even feign concern for Palestinians in your own district and ward who are hurting and losing more friends and family day after day. You say you have no sway in international issues, that it's a job of Congress, but what have you yourself done? If you care for the Bakersfield community nearly as much as you claim to, what have you done, who have you spoken to, in order to try to keep our taxes that Bakersfield taxpayers pay here within Bakersfield, rather than being sent abroad to fund a war machine? What have you done to reach out to the Palestinians here in your city who are in a perpetual state of shock, mourning, and grief as we see the corpses of our loved ones on TV and social media day after day? You say we need to focus on our community here, and that's precisely what we're here to do today. We're here to be the voice of the Palestinian community that you have all ignored for far too long, and we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that you can no longer ignore us. We call on you to do the absolute bare minimum and introduce a ceasefire resolution to stand with the Palestinians of Bakersfield. Ceasefire now.
Your time is up. Go ahead and bring your comments to a close, please. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Sophia Galvin, followed by Carter Beardsley, followed by Karen Olson Johnson.
Welcome.
Hello.
Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Sophia Galvan. I'm here because a genocide is being live streamed to our phones. People ask, how could the Holocaust happen? It's because that people that tolerated the crimes. The Holocaust happened because of millions of individual choices. The people of Palestine are asking for our help. They are asking to be seen as humans. An acronym used by aid workers in Gaza is WCNSF, Wounded Child, No Surviving Family. Let me describe some images that I have personally seen in case you are oblivious to the suffering. Designated safe areas are being bombed. Civilians waving white flags are being shot and killed by snipers. Strangers helping to dig people out of the rubble. Babies freezing to death. Limbs being amputated without anesthesia. C-sections being performed with no anesthesia. An 11-year-old girl shot by a sniper. Children's bodies shaking from trauma exposure. People trying to get aid are shot at by the occupation. Babies born in a genocide and dying in a genocide. Weaponized starvation. Children so severely burned that they die from their wounds. Babies left to die alone in besieged hospitals. Hospitals bombed with doctors and patients inside. People getting kidnapped, stripped, beat, and tagged with a number. Babies screaming for their dead mother. Whole families bombed and buried under the rubble. Animal feed ground into flour for human consumption. A child picking up body parts of his family member and putting them into a grocery bag. A grandfather holding his lifeless granddaughter, opening her eyes to see them for the last time. A mother refusing to leave the dead body of her son and carries him from Khan Yunis to Rafah. A 6-year-old trapped in her vehicle with her surrounded by her dead relatives was martyred along with 2 paramedics trying to rescue her. A 12-year-old girl hanging by her shirt with half of her body intact. What body part would you choose to write your child's name on in case they get blown to pieces? What if it was happening to your loved ones? Will you call for a ceasefire resolution and be on the right side of history?
Thank you, Ms. Galvan. Next speaker, please.
Carter Beardsley, followed by Karen Olson Johnson, followed by Kevin Moreno.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Carter Beardsley, and I sit on the Bakersfield Youth Commission representing Ward 4. The last time that I was here speaking to you all, it was on the presentation. It was a presentation of some of the hopes that I had for the future of our Youth Commission. I spoke about how over the past few years, there were certain aspects of the commission that I found that I was eager to see develop. And I wanted to speak to you guys tonight to update you. First and foremost, we now meet here in council chambers, which may seem minor, but the upgrade from Conference Room A across the street at City Hall North has, I feel, filled us with so much more purpose. Being seated at the dais spoke to me that my voice matters and that the work we will continue to do from here on out is valuable. While here, a fellow commissioner and I also spoke about a bridge we'd like to see between commissioners and their council counterparts. And since then, I've met multiple times with my own counterpart, Councilmember Smith, and have been very grateful to provide that youth perspective into life in Bakersfield. Lastly, we came here previously requesting a budget for our commission. For the past few years, we've had no budget to work with, forcing us to collaborate with pre-existing organizations rather than standing on our own 2 feet. I'm excited to say that the next time that you see me here, I will be joined by the other commissioners, with some of the other commissioners presenting a budget proposal we've been working on very hard per Vice Mayor Gonzalez's request. I wanted to speak on this tonight, both as an update and as a thank you. Your guys' support for our Youth Commission is deeply appreciated, and it serves as a personal reminder to me that just because we are the future does not mean we do not have a place in the present. I'm hopeful that the Youth Commission will soar to heights greater than I can imagine, and thank you.
Thank you for the update, and thank you for your service on the commission. Next speaker, please.
Karen Olson Johnson, followed by Kevin Moreno, followed by Zachary Griffin.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Karen Olson Johnson. I read an article in the Bakersfield Californian about Vice Mayor Andre Gonzalez's interest in revitalizing the train depot and the Baker Street, Sumner Street area of our town. The article referred to a company called LAB in Costa Mesa that worked on the packing house project in Anaheim. In May, I was at the Anaheim California Dental Association annual meeting, and I dropped by that old packing house, as I have done from time to time. What had been in disrepair and languishing for decades was flourishing. That is special to me because Anaheim is a town I rode the horse in through all the orange groves when they used to be there. The town has grown up around the packing house on all sides with a huge commercial district, a business, apartments, ice rink, walking districts, but the packing house was ignored. But that particular company transformed that small parcel of land that has a raised loading dock for the citrus to be loaded, for food vendors at that for the packing house to do a brisk business. Local artisans had their own spaces to provide business, and it has become a destination spot in Anaheim and advertised in their hotels.
Ms. Johnson, your time is up. Can you bring your comments to a close, please?
With councilmen's and the council's assistance, we have a classic train station, we have space, we have loved restaurants, and we have apartments and buildings available. We can develop that into something really exciting, and I'd appreciate your work on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Kevin Moreno, followed by Zachary Griffin, followed by Mr. Jones.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, Council. I'm Kevin Moreno, and I want to start with the fact that I've lived in Bakersfield my whole life. I've seen much of what the city has to offer, whether it's its inadequate public transit, its poor infrastructure, its labor rights violations, the environmentally unsustainable suburban development, the police brutality, the sexism, the homophobia, the xenophobia, and and racism. That's a lot, right? I wondered how my city could harbor such traits, but I needed to look no further than when I saw Karen Goes and Andre Gonzalez's, not just their support, but their indifference towards genocide. Because it sure as hell makes sense that you can let us, the people, your citizens, suffer these conditions while you support a colonizer project that displaces, murders, and imprisons innocent women, men, and children. Your refusal to stand for humanity and agree to a simple ceasefire resolution, one that has been handed to you, is disgusting and dishonorable, and it puts this whole council to shame. And in the end, it tells how this council isn't actually here for us. I see it in the way you run this city. Because a lot of you make the point that you want to focus on improving this community, but you would rather spend over 40% of the budget on police, whereas Public Works, Parks and Rec, and Community Development combined receive no more than a generous 35. So sure, throw crumbs at us, but we know you would rather expand a system that kills, starves, and freezes its disadvantaged than help and improve this community. You'd rather see this community be policed than improved. So even if we can't do it literally, it will be through our gatherings, our actions, and our stories, our accounts of history, that we will charge you with genocide. And I stand with the Free Palestine and for the liberation of all those that are oppressed, and I know that many of my constituents, whether here or not, agree with me.
Thank you, Ms. Moreno. Mr. Moreno. Just a reminder to the audience that the snapping is disrupting our meeting, and we're here to listen to you. We want to hear your comments, but we need to be able to listen to them. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Zachary Griffin, followed by Mr. Jones, followed by Jose Rangel.
Welcome. Please
Good
introduce
evening,
yourself.
council members, community. Hats off to all the young people out here. Love to see them coming up and expressing their opinions. I'm here today to follow up on some business. I was before this council a couple months ago discussing an issue in Mr. Ware's community in regards to some of the streetscape. We were not maybe thinking completely about our complete streets philosophy, and we didn't sort of think about how we were going to get cyclists moved from one area to another on Manor. With the help of staff, Councilman Smith, Mr. Arias as well, we were able to get this solved. And it was, I'm 54 years old. I hate to say it. I know I'm young for some and old to others. But I was very pleased. And as we've heard here from some of our constituents here, sometimes when we're younger, we don't see the change. And I echo their frustrations. However, I want to give the city kudos for getting this done. I did have a sort of a supplemental question because I kind of stumbled in this as someone sent me an email this morning. Apparently there's an ad hoc committee for bicycle and pedestrian multimodal transportation. And looking at the committee, as much as I appreciate the people who are on that committee, I didn't see an educator or an individual who'd spent their life engaging in that. And so I wanted to encourage, I myself have signed up to be a part of getting the emails. And I saw that we had a meeting yesterday evening. And I didn't really, I think the meeting agenda went out at 2:30 on Friday. Being that most of us had Monday off, it seemed to be really pushing the 72 hours, probably within 2.5 hours of letting us know so that we could be a voice. So we can sort of not continue that imagery of maybe not listening to our constituencies. And I also wanted to, with my last 15 seconds, what a great weekend for active transportation. Had the corridor going on, about 2,000 people, I guess, on the corridor. And Mr. Sam Ames, a local promoter, had the 11th annual, that's the 11th straight year of what they call the Rock Cobbler. And I think there are 1,800 people out here
Mr.
using
Griffin.
our community services. And
Mr.
what
Griffin, your time's up. Can you bring your
and what
comments
a
to a
wonderful
close?
opportunity. Thank you guys, and appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. And Councilmember Arias, please.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Griffin, I just want to say you are more than welcome to come and join us at our meetings. I know that, I don't think Gary's in the house, but from the city manager's office, he helps run those meetings with us. We make them available to the public after 5 because we know people work jobs, and we are happy to hear your comments.
Awesome. On the website, it does have that they're on noon. They're going to be at noon, and they're going to be monthly. And from what I understand, they're going to be at 5. And so signed up to get those updates. So thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Harris.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Mayor Go, I just wanted to point out that we only have a minute remaining on the clock. Our next speaker is Mr. Jones, followed by Scott Michael, followed by Jose Rangel.
Thank you. And if you want to try to expedite your comments to allow more people, we have a minute left on the clock. So go ahead and introduce yourself and welcome.
Hi there. My name is Gabriel Jones. I am a resident of Bakersfield. You seem to not believe that the genocide in Gaza affects people in Bakersfield. For evidence of this, that it actually does truly affect the citizens of Bakersfield, I'll have you reference the Washington Post article from November 27th, where they posted the fact that more than 10,000 people living in the United States recently left to join the IDF. Those people are coming back here. They're going to be in our communities, and I want you to push forward a resolution for a ceasefire in Gaza now. But on top of that, too, I need you to put forward a resolution to guarantee all of us that you will not hire any police officers that have had any association with the Israeli occupation forces. I'll cede my time there.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Scott Michael.
Mr. Michael, you have 9 seconds left, so if you can just use that time wisely, please. Welcome.
We're supposed to be given 20 minutes.
You can see the clock up there. We're already at -4.
Since October 7th, I'm going to keep it short, just for the people behind me. Since October 7th, for 131 continuous days, the children of Gaza, the fathers of Gaza, and the mothers of Gaza continue proving to the world that Palestinians will never be defeated. They continue proving to everyone in the world that Palestinians would rather die standing resolutely against the terrorist occupying diaper forces of Israel and its big sister, the US, and then to give up and lose our cause. Palestinians will continue mobilizing around the world, and we will never be defeated. Never. And as Palestinians are remembered for their resistance, courage, and bravery, you city council members who refuse to call for a ceasefire resolution will be remembered for cowards. Pass a
Mr.
ceasefire
Michael,
resolution and free
please bring your
Palestine from
comments
the
to a
river to
close.
the sea.
Thank you. And Madam City Clerk, with that, the
Mayor Go.
time of 20 minutes. Yes.
I have a request to speak. It's to your left.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, let me confirm with City Clerk. Time is up, correct?
I'd like to request that we extend time to allow for everyone who's here to make public comment be afforded the opportunity to speak. It is their right. This is a public space. It is their right to have the freedom of speech, and I would like to make a motion to extend the time.
Madam City Attorney.
Mayor, no motion is needed. This prerogative falls completely within your call.
So right now we have 3 more speakers left. We'll give you 2 minutes each, and just appreciate your staying within your 2 minutes.
Thank you.
This is not typical. And we just ask the audience to observe the rules of decorum. Would you please call the first public speaker, the next one, please?
Jose Rangel, followed by Bisan, followed by Samer Abu Daga, followed by Ridi Patel.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Long time no see. Jose Rangel. Jose Rangel. Just to reiterate, just to refresh. I envision what Colonel Thomas Baker did when he came here with Elisha Stevens down the Kern. I envisioned the metropolis. He died before the railroads even came, but he was about couple years, more than a couple years ahead of his time. Typhoid got him. Rest in peace. But I'm a man of reason, and reason compels me to believe that none of what I envision is possible unless a consensus is reached, and certain attitudes no longer remain unchecked. Remember whose town this is, and remember who we do it for. God bless America, and God bless this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rangel. Next speaker, please. Madam Clerk, can you announce next?
Bisan, followed by Samer Abu Daga, followed by Riddhi Patel.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Bisan Auda, and I hope to speak to your conscience today, if you have one. I'm standing in front of all of you as a war survivor. I cannot stay silent as the Palestinians go through an even more agonizing and aggressive experience, a literal genocide. And you shouldn't stay silent either. You have seen on your screens and heard from the previous speakers before me the awful atrocities Israel is committing against the Palestinians and the horrifying and unlivable situation they're in. Early on, Israel forced 1.9 million Palestinians in Gaza to evacuate from the north to the south for their so-called safety, where 1.5 million ended up in the small city of Rafah. Yet Israel is indiscriminately carpet bombing and killing hundreds of men, women, and children as we speak. To put things in perspective, Rafah is 25 square miles, and that is about the size of Ward 6 and 7 combined. Ward 6 and 7 has only about 118,000 people. Rafah has over 1.5 million displaced Palestinians. That is about 13 times the amount of people living in Ward 6 and 7. On top of that, no medical care, no food, no water, no electricity, no shelter. Experiencing war myself, I know to an extent what it's like to not have those resources. It's heart-wrenching and dehumanizing. You might think you don't have any power to change what's going on, but your position as leaders in our community and our representatives does have an impact. You have the power to change and influence people's mind by publicly denouncing the killing of innocent Palestinian kids and calling for an immediate ceasefire. It's enough to reassure me as a Muslim, an Arab, and a war survivor born in Bakersfield, not only am I being heard, but supported by my representatives. Also, take it from someone who lived through war. Hearing support from around the world holds a huge significance, more than you think it does. Did you rise in power so you could sit in a comfy chair and have a monthly stipend to decorate your office and take Instagram-worthy photos? Don't you claim to be by the people, for the people? If so, I urge you to call for and pass an immediate ceasefire.
Thank you, Ms. Sauda. Next speaker, please.
Samer Abu Daga, followed by Riddhi Patel.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself. Can you just raise the mic a little, please? Thank you.
My name is Samar Abu Daka, Ward 2, here to demand that the City Council pass a ceasefire resolution to stop the genocide happening in Gaza against Palestinians by the Zionist colonial project that calls itself Israel. I'm going to be very quick with my statement because a genocide against Palestinians is happening as we speak, has been happening for the past 131 days, and we no longer have time to waste. In my hand is a draft resolution written by concerned Bakersfield citizens that call for a ceasefire and stands with Bakersfield's Palestinian community. Councilwoman Carr, you gave us your thoughts about this genocide at the last meeting, and although the sentiments are there, it does absolutely nothing to address the concerns that we have on paper. It's time for you to stand by your word and introduce this resolution because you will look back on this day years from now and regret it should you choose to not take concrete action. We, as constituents, demand that every single person on this council has their vote taken so that history is able to judge every single one of you for what you did and did not do during this Holocaust. Your kids will learn about this, and it is your decision as to whether they look at you favorably or choose to disown you from their memories. And before I end my statement, I have one simple request for everyone in this room. Raise your hand if you condemn the murder of Palestinian men, women, and children. Raise your hand. For those who did not raise your hand, shame on you. For those that did, it's time for you to introduce a ceasefire resolution because we are done with platitudes and empty talk.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Riddhi Patel.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Riddhi Patel. I, like many of the people behind me, agree that you should introduce a ceasefire resolution. Manpreet, your thoughts and platitudes, while we appreciate you letting us leave public comment, you literally came into this seat so you could do something. We are asking you to introduce a ceasefire resolution. All these people are going to hell. Ginny, Christian, Eric, Ken, Bob, Karen, Andre, Bruce, Patty, they're all going to hell. The Pope has called for a ceasefire, and they aren't able to. They're burning in hell, and we know that. But you have the ability to introduce a ceasefire resolution and stand with us. And we are waiting for you to do that. And we are giving you the ability to salvage some of the character that you might have left, even though you sold your soul and left Jakara movement to go work for corporate social responsibility for Wonderful. Meanwhile, I asked, just like the person behind me, can the community members who support City Council, specifically Manpreet, introducing a ceasefire resolution, the ones that we have drafted, to stand? I see the Youth Commission is also standing. Andre, your little lackeys aren't standing with you anymore. So I'm just saying that years after years, like this is a culmination point after you establish the rules of decorum because the community members, thousands of community members, wanted a participatory budgeting process and asking you to divest funds from the pigs at the Bakersfield Police Department to community members so we could have sidewalks, so we could have public transit, so we could have housing, so people aren't left on the streets to starve. You guys don't care about Palestine because you don't care about the people here. And so now we're asking Manpreet, the newest, the most progressive, the one who wants to say the most, to introduce a resolution. And everyone here
Ms.
also
Patel,
wants it.
your time is up.
We
Can you
know,
bring your
Karen.
comments?
We know. We see the clock.
That is not appropriate. Ask you to stop. Officers, go ahead and clear. We're going to take a timeout and recess. You are disrupting the meeting. I'm asking the officers to please clear the chambers. Officers, if you could just close the door, please. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Appointments, item 6A, one appointment to the Keep Bakersfield Beautiful Committee.
This appointment is by ward, therefore no ballots are required. I'm going to call on Vice Mayor Gonzalez for the Ward 2 nomination of the alternate Keep Bakersfield Beautiful Committee member.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to nominate, recommend, or move the nomination of Sarah Houston to the alternate position representing Ward 2 on the Keep Bakersfield Beautiful Committee.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is unanimously approved.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Appointments, item B, one appointment at large to the Fire Department Civil Service Board. Applications for appointment were received from Kevin Lee Burton and Louis David.
Thank you. I'd like to clarify the voting process for you. The council will vote electronically, and the city clerk will display and announce the results. Based on these results, the council will then make the appropriate motion regarding each appointment. And Madam Clerk, since this is our first time using this system, would you just explain it, please?
Mayor Go, when I open the vote, the council will have an option of 2 selections, one for each candidate. Once they make their selection, I will close the vote and display and announce to the public.
Thank you.
Mayor, it appears candidate Burton has received a majority of the votes, with
Thank you.
Councilmember Gray abstaining.
Motion to appoint Mr. Burton to the Fire Department Civil Service Board.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Gray voting no.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Burton, for your willingness to serve, and also Ms. Hudson for the KBB board. Next item, please.
One appointment to Miscellaneous Civil Service Board. One application has been received from Ronald Wolf.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Motion to appoint Mr. Ronald Wolf to the Miscellaneous Civil Service Board.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is unanimously approved.
Thank you. And next item, please.
Consent calendar items A, 7A through 7I for approval.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Does any member of the council wish to recuse themselves from any item? Seeing none, does any member wish to pull an item for separate consideration other than 7C1 from Councilmember Freeman and Councilmember Weir? Any other items to pull? I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar for every item except for 7C1.
Thank you for the motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is unanimously approved.
Thank you. And now 7C1, Councilmember Weir, followed by Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we discussed this item at the last meeting. I was adamantly against this, and I remain that way, and I will vote that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Weir. Councilmember Freeman. Can you pull your mic down too, please?
I had a question, and it's also the only thing I've really had constituents call me on, and I was hoping Mr. Burns would be here, so Mr. Clegg, you're going to have to pinch hit for Mr. Burns. In the backup for this program, and I'm in favor of the program, it said we're going to hire two new staff people to monitor the registry or manage the registry. And first, I'm kind of a stickler for overhead. We keep approving permanent expenditures, adding to our overhead. And I see 2 new people with payroll burden. That's 150, 200,000 a year. My question was, is this just managing the paperwork? Because that seems like too many people. If it said one person for all the paperwork and one to be in the field helping fix up these houses or these buildings, that I could see, because we're going to have more of that. But 2 people for managing the paperwork, I have a problem with that. And I was wondering, is this maybe not stated properly, or is that really the intention? Could you help me out here?
Yeah, I think Councilmember Freeman, very good question, and a couple answers and a point of clarification is these are actually 2 positions that were included in last year's budget. We added several different code employees just to increase our code efforts, but it was in reflection of our overall vacant building toolkit that we've built. We have a few employees that are working specifically on the list of blighted properties on a special projects team, but we also have 2 additional employees that are going to be assigned to the implementation of this vacant property ordinance. And if I could, I'll try not to belabor it too long, but we actually went up and took a tour of Fresno. They've had an similar ordinance in place, and they communicated to us on that tour that the most success they've had is actually having code officers sit down and work with property owners to find solutions to get things into a better situation.
Okay.
Compliance is usually the last step. So these 2 will actually help fix buildings, work with business owners to find solutions. It's not just the paperwork.
Okay, can I ask a question? Are these 2 people already here? Were they part of a budget
Yes.
we've hired?
Yes.
We were calling these code enforcement personnel.
Correct.
So this is part of the code enforcement personnel pool.
Correct.
Which we don't have enough of, I know, and we don't, as a result, well, lots of codes on the appearance of things are, go unfulfilled. So I'm in agreement with that. But, so is it a pool where everybody's working on code enforcement? This is just another layer of code enforcement, but it isn't like 2 people exclusively devoted to the paperwork for this new?
Correct. I would clarify, they will be 2 people who are assigned to work specifically on this project so that they, learn how to work with the businesses, but it is part of the code enforcement pool.
That's not their exclusive area of responsibility. They'll also be doing other code enforcement.
I'll defer to Mr. Boyle to give a little more details.
Thank you, City Manager Clegg. Councilmember Freeman. The special projects team is assembly of 6 individuals who work specifically right now on the vacant building ordinance implementation. And I was in a meeting today where that team is currently managing over 200 properties within.
That is our current ordinance that,
Right.
to fix, I understand that.
Mhm.
They're working, that ordinance requires we go out and work. They're not just sitting in the office doing paperwork. They're working on helping with all the vacant buildings. We've already been working on those. We have a committee, we go through them, and I agree with that. I just wanted to be sure that, number one, we didn't hire 2 new people. Sounds like we don't. We've already had them in a budget as code enforcers. And the 2 of those people will be specialists in the registry, but also doing code enforcement, general code enforcement, or are they simply going to work on the paperwork for this registry to keep, chase down people, are they signed up and stuff?
In addition to working on the registry itself and having that as a focal point within their job responsibilities, they'll also be working with special projects as relates
Okay,
to
I just really want to hear the special projects part, that they are really going out and helping fix up these derelict buildings, as well as keeping the registry up to date and doing it. Where do you spend their time? Chasing down more people to register or fixing a building? And I know that I'm glad to hear we're not hiring more than we already have, and I just couldn't see I'd take 2 people full-time just to do the paperwork, to chase down people registering or not registering. I know there's a culling of the list and everything, but especially since we started with a restricted zone, which will probably keep us busy for a number of years. Okay, well, with that explanation, I'm satisfied.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Gray?
Mine as well.
Okay, I just see Councilmember Gray's now. Go ahead and try yours.
Thank you, Mayor Go. I'm going to have to stand with Councilmember Weir on this. I've talked about it before, the last time it was brought up. I don't think that this is going to help the bad actors. They're already a bad actor, a lot of them. Why are they going to take time to register when they're not even following code as it is? And now we're hiring 2 more people, which is fine, it's in the budget, but we put those people in the budget originally because there's other code issues that we're trying to catch up on that we needed help with, and now we're diverting that manpower again to another regulation that just adds layers and layers. So for that reason, I cannot see where this is going to do the city any good. We're going to progress. I think we just need to hire those 2 code officers and start taking care of those bad actors. So with that, I'm going to have to vote against this.
Thank you, Councilmember Gray. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Colleagues, I've represented downtown now for nearly 8 years, and we've systematically gone through a series of different projects and programs and outreach events and policy change in order to continuously support the revitalization of the core, including supporting business owners and property owners through grant programs like our Economic Opportunity Area Program. I want to note that we have granted out almost close to $1 million this year for business owners and property owners in order to help revitalize the downtown. So there are a lot of folks out there who are in fact good actors. But there are some bad actors out there. And there's some actors who are just sort of benign, who aren't necessarily paying attention to their properties. They're out-of-town property owners who have seen their property as a sort of an investment to just sit on and really have not done the proper maintenance and repair and taking care of their property and haven't been very good neighbors. And this is a way for us, this is just one more tool for us to continuously improve the condition of our downtown. It's absolutely important that we take this step. Speaking with dozens and dozens of business owners and property owners, there's a lot of support in the downtown area for this particular policy, and people are eager to see it implemented. If for nothing else, but for a simple posting on each building that identifies who is responsible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the proper maintenance and care for that building. And I think that's important for all of these good actors and these folks who are really investing in our urban core and our downtown to be able to know who they can call on when there's an issue. So with that, I'm going to move adoption of the ordinance.
Mayor Go, is it okay?
Councilmember Gray.
I totally agree with you, Andre, that we need to get the downtown cleaned up. I went down there last week for dinner. Mama Mia's had a wonderful time. And we need to get it cleaned up, and definitely working towards that. So I don't disagree with what you're saying in that regard at all. But I don't understand why you're talking about these buildings are going to be posted. Why do we have to create another 2 jobs, or maybe 1 at least, when we already know how to find the owners of those buildings and then start enforcing the code that we have, rather than create another layer on top of this thing, when common sense tells me if they haven't called in to let you know, hey, I got an abandoned building, you say a lot of them are out of town, that type of thing, they're not even going to know about this registry situation. And so I'm just bringing this up to, sometimes I think government, we just need to apply some common sense to government and not always apply regulation. And I think in this case, this is a really good case for that we can get a hold of these property owners that have lost interest and be able to post who's responsible and start holding their feet to the fire using the code officers that we're going to be hiring and the ones that we have. So with that, I appreciate, respectfully, I submit my opinion.
Thank you, Councilmember Gray. You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with council members Weir and Gray voting no.
Thank you. And next item, please, Madam Clerk.
Council and mayor statements.
Councilmember Gray.
Thank you. We have been supporters of Tunnel to Towers for years now, my husband and I. And I'd like to bring forth a referral tonight. I was watching their commercial, and they have, and then I did my research on it. They have now begun a program called Veterans Villages, and they have National Case Management Network that they are going all over the United States and putting in villages for homeless vets with private money to be able to not only house them, but also give them all those services they need to help them, you know, get back into our society, because they have given so much to this country. And I was just so impressed with it. It says that through the Veterans Villages and Case Management Network, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation is responsible for providing housing assistance and access to supportive services to over 3,300 veterans in 2023, with nearly 4,000 veterans assisted since the program's inception. Tunnel to Towers ensures that our veterans have a place to live with comfort, dignity, and hope as they work towards financial stability and independence. Their commitment is to ensure that no veteran is left behind. And they actually have a village in West LA that on a 388-acre property, and they have worked, it's a campus for over 3,000 veterans in LA. Well, I got to thinking, I mean, I don't think there's any city in the entire state of California that's more patriotic than the city of Bakersfield. We treat our vets here with such dignity and are continually lifting them up. We have all these memorials all over our city. I mean, it's a very, very important part of our makeup here, our character as a city. So I would like to refer to staff, if you would provide an analysis for us of how we can partner with Tunnel to Towers to bring affordable housing to our veterans in Bakersfield. I think it's another great way for us to be able to engage the community, and I think our community would get behind this with, 100%. So if I can make that referral tonight, and happy Valentine's Day to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gray. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Now that we adopted the vacant property registry, I'd like us to continue our quest to really build up our chronic nuisance property toolkit and develop our lien forgiveness program for property owners, new property owners who acquire properties that once have had a number of liens. And I'd like to refer that over to our Planning and Development Committee. And then number two is I received word, and I'm not quite sure what the validity is to this, but I would like to ask staff to research this and to work with the county of Kern. But I received word that people who are released from our county jail are actually released in Bakersfield when they're not necessarily from Bakersfield. They may be from outlying areas throughout the county. I'd like us to research that and see if there's any merit to that, and work with the county to establish a better program so that we ensure that all those folks who are released from the county jail are returned to their home community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a couple items. Number one, we had a Planning and Development Committee this week, and we had a consultant look at our downtown housing capacity and our goal of 10,000 residents. And one of the main recommendations was that we allow the CB zone to be more transparent, was the term they used. But it seems to me that if we just would allow residential on that, by right instead of with the conditional use permit, then that would move towards our goal. And since we're looking at our zoning ordinance now, I'd like to look at putting that in the zoning ordinance. Number two is bonding numbers when we record subdivisions map. Councilmember Freeman called me last week, and I also received a call from constituents. We have historically, and I, longer than I've been here, so 60, 70 years probably, used county bonding numbers for our recording of subdivision maps. And maybe that made sense when we were a town of 10,000 or 20,000, but it seems to me we could come up with our own bonding numbers now. The county, they're doing paving work out in the desert and rural places, trucking costs are a lot higher, and we bid stuff out all the time. We build stuff all the time. I think we could get much more reasonable numbers if we came up with our own bonding numbers. The example that he gave was there's various problems with it, but number one is we charge plan check and inspection fees based on the bonding numbers. And when the bonding numbers changed, the plan check and inspection for a 40-acre subdivision went up $60,000. No more work for the plan checkers or inspectors, but we're charging considerably more money. And I would like for us to look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. I don't see any other requests to speak. So with that, we're adjourned at 6:43. Happy Valentine's Day.